Battle of Gods has been widely considered one of the absolute best Dragon Ball films since its release in 2013. But if my rampage through the classic Dragon Ball films has proved anything, it's that I can find fault with just about anything. Nothing is perfect, and while these are considered to be on another level, I've never made an official review of this film from start to finish. So, since I struggled my way through and reviewed every other old Dragon Ball film, I decided to ring out 2019 by reviewing two of the most popular Dragon Ball films, to figure out for myself if these films live up to the hype that surrounds them. Today we are diving in headfirst and dissecting Akira Toriyama's definitive and celebrated continuation to the Dragon Ball story, complete with ethereal music, otherworldly revelations, and explosive climactic action sequences. This is the celebrated film Battle of Gods. Before I sit down and watch my totally legal copy of Battle of Gods that was obtained legally, I want to make clear that while I run a Dragon Ball channel, I am by no means shy about sharing my criticisms when they surface, and if you can't take that, then smash that like button and subscribe. I'm just kidding. But seriously. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get cozy and enjoy a good movie. And hey look, Netflix has it. Told you guys I obtained it legally. Wait, Bills? What the hell is that? 5 years on and these pesky boomers are still spelling his name wrong. And you know what the weird part is? The subtitles supplied by Netflix call him Beerus. I have so many questions and the movie hasn't even started yet. But don't blink, because the film itself begins with a montage of reanimated key moments from the series' history, giving any new first-time viewers hopping on the 18th movie in a 30-year-old franchise the Cliff Notes version of the story, catching us all up to modern-day Dragon Ball. The first scene sets the stage for Bills, the antagonist of the feature. Both the Supreme Kai and Old Kai play this off as if it's something they've known about all along. But like Majin Buu and even the Kais themselves, Beerus and Whis are being shoehorned, for lack of a better term, into Dragon Ball because they need new characters for Goku to fight and for Vegeta to growl at. It sounds like I'm complaining here, but I'm really not. Dragon Ball as a whole is an ongoing series, and it always has been, so to speak, after its first arc in early Dragon Ball. And so, therefore, future-proofing it becomes nigh impossible when you consider the amount of enemies the gang punches and kicks their way through on a weekly basis. I believe the writers and Akira Toriyama in this instance had their hands tied. In saying that, they went the extra mile in attempting to make Beerus feel like a real part of the classic Dragon Ball universe. Whether it be through both Supreme Kai and King Kai discussing him, or Beerus revealing his involvement in past events like authorizing the Saiyan homeworld's destruction, these are all retroactive changes that I would normally hate. But considering the circumstances, I think they did the best with what they could, and it made for some interesting scenes for sure. The presence and correct application of character makes this small grievance easier to put up with in a big way. In the first few scenes, specifically with Goku, you can truly feel Toriyama's influence over this particular production. From the way Goku talks to how he reacts and cracks naive jokes, the classic Dragon Ball feel is still very much present. I specifically enjoyed King Kai driving his car around his tiny little planet. Through this perfect use of character, the scene is set and the title card drops, touting a wonderful rock rendition of the classic Chala Het Chala theme song. After this, we are finally introduced to Beerus and Whis in all of their glory, and I adore them. Interestingly, as Whis makes his way up to Beerus's chambers, you can notice a few hints towards reptilian structures. This is largely because Beerus's original design had him looking much more reptilian than cat-like, and you can thank Akira Toriyama for that cat-like change. This introduction, while explaining away where these two have been for almost 40 years, also demonstrates their personalities wonderfully. Very easily, both Whis and Beerus could have taken themselves way too seriously, which would have resulted in us not taking them seriously, somewhat ironically. Instead, in their opening moments, both of them display their comedic chops, showing us that they're not one-note characters, but fully realized personalities that are here to stay and have something to contribute. It's through these playful back and forths with the two we first hear the words Super Saiyan God. Personally, I've never been a fan of transformation in this series unless it represented something in the story. I absolutely loved the original Super Saiyan transformation with Goku, and Gohan finally cutting loose going Super Saiyan 2 was phenomenal writing. However, what I think is often overlooked is that the transformations themselves are not memorable just because they look cool, but because the story that superseded them was engaging and well written. Neither of those moments I mentioned would have lasted the test of time had all the pieces necessary for their execution not been meticulously placed beforehand. In other words, these moments were earned. I've mentioned before that Dragon Ball's major driving theme throughout the franchise has been progression through struggle. This philosophy can be observed in climactic moments in the franchise, and it's precisely why Goku's original and Gohan's Cell Arc transformation was as successful in the first place. Both were put under extreme stress when suddenly everything clicked. When a story is written like Battle of Gods, one that hinges on a transformation like Super Saiyan God that isn't earned and instead gift-wrapped through ceremony, it loses all of its luster, going against everything that made the series as action-packed and fun as it was. And even Goku makes note of that in the film. However, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy the design and visuals surrounding its unveiling. I love how the form looks, but as I said, that's a superficial change, not an emotional one, and so I don't really care. The designs from Akira Toriyama are always something I enjoy. From the reintroduction to classic characters wearing different clothing to new additions like Beerus and Whis, all of these inclusions felt very natural and were instantly accepted by me on my first viewing. The music in the film is minimal for the most part, understated but very effective at setting tone when called upon. There's an abundant and noticeable absence of any music in a lot of scenes. However, this serves to enhance the movie when certain bursts of sound design and music shine through, like Beerus and Whis' sudden arrival on King Kai's world. But that's not to say there aren't a couple of catchy tracks to appreciate also. The rock remix of Chala Head Chala is one I was left humming long after my first viewing. Additionally, the song Hero by the band Flow is fittingly high tempo and empowering, acting as the backing soundtrack for the major conflict of this film. The score for the movie overall, however, is only serviceable and nothing really to write home about. The vast majority of tracks are better defined as music snippets than actual songs. And when you compare Sumitomo's work on this film to his later work on the Broly movie in 2018, the difference in quality and scope becomes abundantly apparent. Before I move on to the action, which I'm certain 99% of you have been waiting for me to talk about, I want to touch on the comedy and how it was used creatively within the film. The comedic aspects have a greater presence in this movie than perhaps any of the other Dragon Ball films, past or present. Promoting moments of dialogue with characters that don't play much of a role in the film is a nice way of reminding us what Vegeta and ultimately Goku will be fighting for later in the story. Additionally, it's also a creative and seamless mechanism to weave the story's key plot points together. The Pilaf gang, while many found them annoying initially, narratively they serve to subtly create a natural scenario for a certain reveal to take place. The gang takes Trunks as hostage, they shoot Videl in the leg, and through healing her, Dende discovers that she's pregnant. If this scene didn't take place, then when the gang needed another Saiyan to take part in the ceremony, Videl randomly out of nowhere delivering this bombshell would have seemed extremely convenient. However, thanks to the Pilaf gang, that was no longer the case. Now, onto the action. There are 3 fights worth talking about, as they're given the most focus within the feature. Goku versus Beerus on King Kai's planet, Vegeta versus Beerus, and the final battle between a Super Saiyan God Goku and Bills Nye the Destruction Guy. The first fight on King Kai's world is very playful and fun. Tons of bright colors in addition to paying homage to Goku cycling through the Super Saiyan forms like he did in the Buu saga before fighting the God of Destruction. The prelude to this battle has a ton of compelling dialogue, and the fight itself does a lot in the way of animation considering it's a glorified sparring session. I love the flick Beerus delivers to Goku. I adore the little details like Goku's eyes not catching up to Beerus as he moves behind him to deliver that chop. And man, when Goku explodes out of Super Saiyan 3 into his base form, the clouds spreading out, it is so satisfying every damn time. I'm not a big fan of the cockiness Goku displays for a moment before the fight began. It feels out of character, and it seems to be very much a trait of these modern Dragon Ball films. Yet there's never anything done with it narratively. The Vegeta fight, for me, while short, delivered the emotional height of the film, and for that very reason delivered possibly the most popular scene of the entire movie. The considerable lengths Vegeta went to in order to maintain peace at the party was brilliant to watch and demonstrated an emotional growth for the character. And as soon as Beerus touches Bulma, he loses it. That's my Demonstrated through some fantastic action animation, Vegeta for the first time in the film lands some clean shots in Beerus. It's short but left the fans wanting more, which I think is the perfect format for a Vegeta fight. A similar approach was taken with the Broly film as Vegeta was tagged out for Goku to start his fight. Speaking of which,
so tell me, how does it feel becoming a god?
This fight has its ups and its downs for me, but certainly far more ups than downs, and so I'll get the downs out of the way first. It uses an abundance of CGI in a variety of ways, from special effect blasts, backgrounds, and 3D model rigs. For the most part, I love the addition of 3D backgrounds as it frees up the animators to focus on the centerpiece, the focal point of the attention, the two characters clashing. However, the utilization of 3D animation on the characters in this section, while brief and perhaps too ambitious, was utterly dreadful. My biggest gripe with 3D animation effects work is the knock-on effect it has on other animators. For instance, we all remember Fusion Reborn's amazing animation, right? Well, Tadayoshi Yamamuro was the man responsible for this utterly fantastic dimensional teleport effect in Fusion Reborn. However, in a recent interview, he noted that animating those sequences was a massive pain, and that if it had been undertaken today, would have been done in 3D. I can't disagree with this line of thinking more. 3D should be used as a tool to enhance what you are currently doing. It should never be used as a crutch. Otherwise, we're just admitting that we're not putting as much effort into something that we used to do. While difficult, the end result in Fusion Reborn lasted the test of time, and as a result is marveled to this day. The team behind Fusion Reborn clearly had the time to get everything they wanted to finished on time, and all the action sequences in the movie were completed perfectly. The use of 3D in this scenario would not have been necessary. And unfortunately, the same can be said for Battle of Gods. The sequence with which they used the 3D character models didn't need to be 3D to achieve what they did in the film. That and the character models looked like garbage. The rest of the fight, I am happy to say, looks spectacular. It's pretty difficult to discern which animator did what in the film, mostly due to Tadayoshi Yamamuro again drawing over all the animation in the film to present it as a consistent style. But the obvious standout and highlight of this action sequence has to be Naotoshi Shida's amazing cut as Super Saiyan Goku bursts from the earth and soars through the heavens. I don't need to tell you about it because, let's face it, you've all probably seen it already. It's incredible. I also love the added sense of suspense the movie delivers too, with the Super Saiyan God time limit. All the time during the fight, we are left speculating and wondering when the form will run out of juice, and when it does, it's fantastic and cathartic to see Goku still hang in there. Even when his speed isn't working anymore, watching him solve this issue with techniques like instant transmission and creative flanking is incredibly engaging and fun to watch unfold.
Well, I do give up.
So, when all is said and done, do I think this movie holds up? Yes, absolutely. This movie for a long time was considered to be the best Dragon Ball film, and while I think Dragon Ball Super Broly takes that distinction, I don't think it can be understated how important and refreshing this film truly was. Released during a time when Dragon Ball wasn't mentioned outside of a random OVA or video game, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods resurrected a beloved franchise from the depths of irrelevance into the mainstream once again, paving the way for yet even more feature-length motion pictures and a 131 episode long, hugely successful television series watched by millions around the world. The film has its flaws, some of which can be seen as irritating depending on your mood, but the high-octane action provided by master animators, the classically nostalgic Akira Toriyama dialogue, and the magnificently ambitious story that blew the universe wide open for the rest of the series to explore is more than worth the price of admission and cost of purchase. If you haven't seen this wonderfully camp, thrilling film, and you are a Dragon Ball fan, I couldn't recommend it more. Here's hoping I can say the same for another modern Dragon Ball film that I'll be reviewing next week. But until then, I've been Totally Not Mark. Thank you so much for watching.